Welcome to California State University, Dominguez Hills. This is our third podcast about international education under Global DH. We have a special guest today, Professor and Dr. Terry McGlynn from the biology department. He's going to continue what Professor Glenn de Voogd started last week, which is talk to us a little bit about the research, the teaching, how is the curriculum at CSUDH integrated with some learning outcomes that pervades to international education. Terry, it's a pleasure having you here.
Thanks.
I don't know where to start. Shall I start from being an outstanding professor back in 2021, where you nominated, in fact, one of the articles in our bulletin referred to you as teacher of the teachers, or as someone from when Twitter came out. Mm-hmm. I believe you were one of the first few faculty on campus that was using it.
Yeah, I was active on Twitter back when Twitter was.
Are you still?
No. I've deleted my Twitter account for the obvious reasons, and I've switched over to Blue Sky, which is a really strong academic community there. Most scientists have moved over to Blue Sky, and so it's still the same. There's not quite as many people, but there's still a good scientific community.
How about the Golden Pond, a small Golden Pond?
My blog, Small Pond Science.
Blog? Yeah.
So my blog, Small Pond Science, it still lives there, but I've actually transitioned a bit, and so it's now a newsletter, and I've rebranded as Science for Everyone.
That's amazing.
And so it's like the same audience basically, but the Small Pond Science blog was more narrowly focused on being a scientist in a smaller teaching focused institution. And so I've realized I've been writing about a broader variety of subjects. And so now it's called scienceforeveryone.science. So
tell us a little bit about your background, your interest in science, and more so for our international students, your interest in foreign countries, your research in Costa Rica, Australia, and other places. Please share with us if you have any.
Yeah, sure. So so when I was in college in Los Angeles, I was just a normal biology student. But when I was preparing to go to graduate school, I had a professor who did a lot of work in Costa Rica. And so she made sure when I went off to graduate school that I had opportunity to go to a program that had strong international exposure.
Yeah.
And so when I went off to the University of Colorado, I enrolled in this course with the Organization for Tropical Studies, which had me traveling all around Costa Rica, doing biology with a whole bunch of other incipient tropical biologists. And I've just been working down there for a long, long time ever since. And so my research program is based out of there. And so I work mostly on ants. Historically, I've mostly worked in tropical rainforests, asking different questions about biodiversity and climate change and things like that.
So of the questions, in one of the things that you do, you're very active research-wise. In one of the interviews I read, you talked about that the big questions are not asked or not revealed by scientists, rather by those new in the fields. I'm thinking of myself. I mean, I have no clue of science. I could ask some good questions, right?
Oh, entirely. Yeah, no, I feel like sometimes I think the biggest, most interesting, intriguing questions are like when I visited kindergarten or first or second grade classrooms when my kid was young. I would visit and give little presentations, and they ask, they raise their hand and they ask questions, and from a position of pure ignorance. They don't know much about ants, but they're just curious, and they ask very incisive questions of things that we don't know, because they don't know what is known and don't know, and so they ask really big questions that often we don't have the answer to. Like there's there's the story like about one fish is the old fish is swimming in the water, and the young fish comes up to him, and the old fish asks the young fish, so how's the water today? And the young fish says, well, what's water? Right, because they just live in water. They don't realize that they're in water. And so that naivete of not even knowing what the experts know allows you to see things that other people don't see. And so scientists spend so much time thinking in their little narrow box about here's the research question that I'm asking. And so we often think incrementally, trying to understand what's next. Or even if we're trying to think transformatively to come up with new ideas, it's all based on what we already think and know. And so big ideas often come from the outside, from outsiders, you know, or like, for example, in the field of math, like they say that all the new discoveries in math come from people who are like, you know, under 30 or under 35 or something like that. They have these ideas, they do this research, they make these discoveries. So I feel like when I'm working with students, students will notice things that I don't notice, or students will have ideas that have never occurred to me that might not have ever occurred to other scientists. And so I just love working with students because of that.
So what makes the scientist special? I'll tell you this, because my integration with my working with scientists, and I mean professors and other friends who are in the fields, I appreciate when you talk about things they notice, the observation, but the style of communication. Scientists, if I were to send an email to a group of political scientists and a group of biologists, I could tell you the response from the biologist was really factual. And the conversation will stop after a second email where I explain myself what I meant. And usually it's really straightforward, a short email. With the other social scientists, and I'm including political scientists, the response of the email that I get from the same topic will be a long email. And it's usually built with some kind of emotional reasoning. And the conversation will continue after response. And so what makes them special? I mean, what a different, a scientist, a political science, a social scientist and a scientist, hard science.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like scientists are just normal people in a lot of ways. Yeah. But I think when we're dealing with I think we start with working, we make evidence-based decisions. At least that's the idea. And I think there's this idea that scientists are magically impartial and just, are neutral to external things, that science is not so much a human endeavor, but some pure process. I don't buy that at all. Yeah. Politics is inherently a part of science, which clearly we know now. But then also there's a lot of human motivation and emotion there. But I think maybe it is the scientists are just busy enough with what they're doing that they, if we're writing, like when we're writing a scientific paper, it's like intro, methods, results, discussion, right? Yeah. And so where's the time for this deeper argument?
Where is it?
Yeah.
Very, very true. So what's the difference between, and this is really for our international students who are interested in graduate studies, one of the reason they come to us is for research opportunities they have, particularly in your area, environmental studies, computer science, all of that. What is the difference between a scientist and a teacher? Do you see yourself as a professor of biology more than a researcher or scientist, or both?
I mean, I see myself as both. I feel like being a professor is like 8 jobs at the same time, right? And so we're teaching, we're doing research, we're mentoring researchers. We're also our accountants running our own laboratories, right? And we're also our own travel agents, and and our own accountants and bookkeepers and all that, just to run a research lab. But I feel like doing science and mentoring researchers goes hand in hand. They one and the other. And so if mentoring is a form of teaching, then I think almost all researchers are, strong teachers or mentors, because research isn't done in isolation. Like there's a group of 5 people in my lab right now, and we all work together, and it's my job to train them in research.
Yeah, I met a few of your students, and I'm really, truly impressed. And we might try to bring a few of them to do some talk like this with us.
We'd love that.
These are on campus, but you also took your student to the rainforest of Costa Rica. You took your student to Australia. And I know that you have students that published with you and went on done other research. 2 things. What other places did you take your students other than Australia and Costa Rica? And if you could talk a little bit from some of the research activities the students do in collaboration with you, and some of the mentorings along the way.
So for a long time, my research program was principally based out of Costa Rica, and so I would have collaborators working down there, but we'd be working at this field station. And so some students would come down for a few weeks at a time. Some students would go for several months at a time, depending on the scope of their project, what they're doing. And so if you're a graduate student, then if you're working internationally, and if it's a field-based project, then you'd be there for quite a long time, right? And then so I had colleagues in the Northern Territory of Australia who ran a research lab out there. And so I found funding from the National Science Foundation to create internship opportunities for our Dominguez students and other students in the CSU to, spend 6 months over there. And then right now, the students that are doing research with me are primarily just working out of the local Natural History Museum, where there are extraordinary biological collections. But we're also planning on traveling around the U.S. To other collections where there's good birds and good ants, essentially, for us to do our measurements. Otherwise, I guess the other ways in which I travel with students is if we're traveling to conferences. And so I've taken students, and so one meeting that I go to every 4 years is the the Congress of the International Union for the Study of Social Insects, because I work on ants, and so it's like about 1,000 people, everyone who studies ants, bees, wasps, and termites, and other social insects all get together, and it's just like, and if you study those things, it's just amazing. And so, and those conferences have been in Japan and South Africa. Next year's in Germany, and I bring students along to those so they can present their research. Yeah.
Amazing. You mentioned in some of your interviews how you value students' curiosity. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? You mentioned earlier about people asking questions, your kids asking questions that other people don't ask. That curiosity, how valuable is that to research?
Well, the way you make scientific discoveries is that you see or notice something interesting, and then you follow that down to try to figure out what's going on. And so when students start working in my lab, then there's some kind of project that they're working on. But the research process involves developing your own ideas and developing methods and approaches and solving that problem. And so in the course of working as a technician or at an introductory level, then they'll see something. And so right now, what we're doing in the lab is we're doing multispectral photography to measure how insects reflect heat in visible and in infrared wavelengths.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, so
I almost lost you there.
So we have the ants that we're studying. Some of them are really good at bouncing off heat from the sun. So half of the heat from the sun comes in visible light, like light that we can see. But then there's heat that also arrives in infrared radiation, which is not visible to anybody in the near infrared. And so it turns out that the surfaces of these animals can bounce off that heat really well. So we know that white surfaces bounce off more heat and black surfaces absorb more heat. The same phenomenon happens in the infrared. They're sort of like more reflective or less reflective infrared surfaces, but in most animals, this is not really being studied, even though it's real important for climate resilience and understanding how evolution is going to respond to climate change. And so we're doing these measurements using specially modified cameras to measure this reflectivity. And so as my students are doing these measurements, as we're getting the animals and putting them in our apparatus and taking the photographs to analyze them, they'll notice certain structures that might be more or less reflective, but also we're going through different kinds of animals, and they'll see, how different animals will have different shapes or structures that could reflect this. And so this helps them identify the questions that they'll be working on.
That's really great, and it's very, very interesting. I'm interested in that wonderful work you're doing with your students, and we're really, really sort of grateful for you sharing those with us. Let me shift. We're still in the same area, but you are also, you do so many first thing on campus, Twitter, the blog. But on the academic side, you were also one of the people who were involved in creating the undergraduate office or the undergraduate studies. What is the story behind it?
So shortly after I came to campus, which was almost 20 years ago now, there was a bunch of faculty. This is a primarily undergraduate campus.
Yes.
So it's very student-centered, right? And so a lot of us do research with undergraduates as well, with graduates. And so we wanted to make sure that there was more support for these undergraduate researchers structurally, that they had more access to travel funding to conferences, research support, better access to applying to graduate school, and so on. And so we had this grassroots idea of developing this Office of Undergraduate Research. And so we got together, we learned how to do this. I went to a workshop run by the Council of Undergraduate Research to learn how these offices are run. And then we developed this with the support of the Provost's office at the university. We developed this office. Yeah.
So two things. One is, where is that idea now? And I know the answer, but I want you to share it. And the other one, did the idea of undergraduate research conference that we have on a yearly basis emerge out of those efforts?
Well, so our campus has the largest research conference within the CSU, like the on-campus research conference, is my understanding. So there was a very small conference that existed before the Office of Undergraduate Research, but we really, really grew it in size.
It's like a 2-day conference. Yeah. What happened to the office today?
Well, so the office still exists. It's it operates out of the College of, or the office, the College of Research and Graduate Studies. The Office of the Dean of Research, and so there's a full-time staff member, and then there's a faculty director, and so there's professional development series, and students get individualized support and small grant awards and stuff like that. Yeah.
So one of the opportunities for students on campus, including international, is to participate, especially if you're interested in research, in the conference that is held, I believe, at the beginning of the year or the end of the year, somewhere in the spring semester.
Yeah, it's usually, I think it's usually February.
February,
So students, the idea is that people have been doing research in fall, they'll have something to present.
And how does it work? I know it started, when you said started small. Today is like each year it grows by number, and now it's like a 2-day conference, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you tell us a little bit how undergraduate and graduate students can be involved?
Yeah. Well, so students that are doing research here are doing either a course-based project, or they're working with an individual faculty mentor. And so when the call comes out, then you put in your proposal for that. And so because there's a lot of students who get started on research because we have course-based undergraduate research experiences. So if you're in a class, then the whole class is doing original research on a question that might even be published. And then, but then some students will take that on and do more work. And so, so the relationship with that faculty member is really critical. And so what I like about being here is that all of our classes are small. Even the big classes are small, like 50, 60 students or something like that. And so, you really have those individualized relationships that are available here. And so also the research office can help connect you, find someone to do research with if you're interested.
And this is really the emphasis on faculty in this program for the last 2 weeks, is to showcase those opportunities to students, knowing that when they come to campus, I always say it's one of the maybe the early offices where a place or university where you could just show up to a professor's office, and even though he or she is busy doing his or her stuff, they will actually talk to you, and they don't let you go. They might be, not appreciative, disturbing them, but faculty have what I call an open door policy. In other words, this is what makes this university accessible to everyone.
Yeah, no, I feel that this place is special because we are so student centered. So
Yes,
everyone in my department by far, it's like we're here to see the students succeed. And so there was a student who transferred in from a community college who was told by her community college professor, because she just took an insect biology class and really loved insects. And they're like, oh, you should transfer to Dominguez Hills and work with Dr. McGlynn. And so she came to see me, and she's like, oh, Dr. Carey told me that I should transfer to here and take classes and do research with you. And now she does. And she's a Beckman scholar. I think she's the one you met.
You met recently.
Right? And she's a rock star researcher and doing really well. But it all started with her just stepping in my office and saying, hey, I heard you were looking for students.
Yeah, that's amazing. Can you talk a little bit about, because I know in the past you had students who published with you and who are really became a very special individual, writing, doing research, and being successful in their career. Can you talk a little bit about those examples?
Yeah. When we're doing research, at least in my field, like we're doing research for the purpose of publishing it, right?
Yeah.
And so if any student has this substantially involved in a project, then they'll be an author on the work, clearly. Yeah. Some of my students will move on to graduate school, you getting their master's or sometimes here, sometimes elsewhere, but also getting their PhD. So there's a former student of mine who's now a good friend of mine. He went on to get his PhD at Tulane University in New Orleans, and then now he's a scientist with the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, where he's working on clean air for communities in urban communities in California, for example. One of my first students who worked with me is now a professor of entomology, Washington State University.
It's amazing.
But I feel it's not my job to train students to become professors. It's to help support whatever their professional goal might be.
So are you a scientist or a professor of science? I know I asked you before, and you said both. Yeah.
I mean,
where do you lean? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so if I had to choose the research or the teaching, I think I would probably choose the research, but only because I get to have such close relationships with the students who I'm doing research with.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking is also personal. I get a lot of people who ask me, students who are doing graduate studies. I'm in political science. So there are some who are driven by doing research, changing the world, policy. And then those who are come to study PhD, to do doctoral studies. And that's really the end of it, is being a professor. So here is, you're faced with this question, what do you tell that student who wants to be sort of doing some research, but also wants to do another degree?
Well, I mean, so what I really like about being a professor is that I can really choose my own professional trajectory.
Exactly.
So I can focus on the questions that I want in the direction I want. And so if I'm concerned about science policy, that I can spend my time investing into engaging with policymakers and working in government. And if I'm interested in public outreach, then I can work with folks at the Natural History Museum and do outreach events, and that's all part of my job. And so I feel that when you're going to college, if you're getting your undergraduate or your graduate degree, that doesn't necessarily determine what you'll be doing. It just gives you the preparation so you have choices ahead of you.
like learning the skills to be successful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, final question, and I have to bring it back to our international students. What are some of the opportunities that you see with your travel, working in foreign countries, that you see Cal State Dominguez Hills offer to international students, that when they come here, they'll find it useful, and they could be successful in their careers?
Yeah. Well, I think one big piece is just that Los Angeles is an amazing place. Like, there is so much diversity of every kind. So there's so many different languages, but also any kind of organization or skill. Like, there's there's biotechnology, there's environmental consulting, biodiversity, climate planning, all the other kinds of industry are all right here. And so if students want to have real world experiences, then it's possible just outside the door. But also at the same time, because LA and Dominguez Hills, what we see at Dominguez Hills really reflects the composition of Los Angeles, is that when international folks show up here, it's a really comfortable place because they fit so in, because as if you're walking around Los Angeles, you can't tell who's international and who's not. And so it's just, you're part of the community. And so I feel like this is a really welcoming place for people. And so it's easy to find yourself. You can settle in really easily, and then just get to work.
It's very, very interesting. In our recruitment efforts, we reach out to community colleges, high schools. And one of the emails we just got this morning from one of the community colleges up north, they are around area of Sacramento. What they took from our conversation with them is that Cal State Dominguez Hills is really a good fit for international students. We also got that from students who come here through the Study Abroad America. These are people who come just for a semester. Also students who are here for an exchange program with other universities. And a good example, maybe this is the few universities that actually elect to high position in student representation, international students. We have a president of the students organization on campus about 2 or 3 years ago, who was an international student. The person in charge of the budget of the students organization is an international student. So it's really, that fit is very, 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 we're blessed to have that fit.
Yeah, I feel like international students are students here. It's not as if they're necessarily in a special category. They're just a part that's an integral part of our campus community.
Dr. Terry McGlynn, and we didn't talk about, we come to the end of this program. Unfortunately, we didn't even talk about your efforts on the Senate. You are the chair of the Senate. You do so many wonderful things for the university. We're so happy to have you on this program. I know our students will benefit a lot from your expertise, your care about these international students. Anything else you want to say?
Sure. I'd just like to say, if you choose to come here, then I hope you get to know faculty, and I suspect you'll make good friends, and this is a comfortable place to be.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
We come to the end of this program. Until next week, see you, and we look forward to having more stories, more experiences with our students for you to, and faculty for you to share with yours and choose us as one of your destination. Thank you so much, Glenn.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.